Hi, Gabe here from West Coast SCI Physiotherapy. Today's video will cover 3 exercises for your glutes. The reason why we're doing this video is to help not only strengthen your glutes and hips, but also prevent injury of your knees. If you feel sore in the morning, don't fret. We have another video linked in the description below to stretch out the same area. We want to make sure that you have a towel as well, so pause now if you need to grab one. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our videos to make sure that you're staying up to date to our latest releases. So we're going to start off with a bridge, and we'll do an easy version, medium version, and a difficult version. So first off, the easy version, I'm going to do a 2-leg bridge. So both feet flat on the floor. I'm going to start basically by driving my hips upwards, and my shoulders and my feet will still be touching. So we're going to do 12 repetitions of each of these exercises. So as I go up, I'm thinking squeeze through my glutes or my buttocks, especially at that top. I'm also kind of bracing through my stomach a little bit, so I don't kind of just ignore what my stomach is doing. I'm giving a little bit of tension through it, kind of as if somebody's gonna punch me in the gut, and I'm just bracing myself or protecting myself against the blow. And again, we're trying about 12 repetitions. Shoot, is that 6? 7. Squeeze through 8 and 9. And do a little bit of tummy tuck as well, or tummy squeeze. 10, 11, and 12. Good, so there's our easy version of the bridge. Let's try the clamshell. So for clamshells, I'm gonna lie on my side. Again, this is our easy version. My hips are stacked on top of each other, so I'm perpendicular from the ground. And your head is just resting, so I can either rest it right on my arm. I can prop it up if I like to. Personally, I like to just rest on my arm because I find it's a bit more comfortable. So what I'm going to try to do is just make sure those hips are stacked, because that's really important. Otherwise, you're going to be targeting a different muscle in the back of your hips there. And what we're going to do is just lift that top leg. So again, we're doing 12 repetitions. And there's 2. Really, you should be targeting this. It's called the gluteus medius. Here's 5. So it's kind of this smaller muscle just at the top of your hip. 7, 8, and again, if you aren't stacking your hips, you're gonna probably feel it maybe in some different areas. 10, a couple more, 11, and 12. Good, we'll flip it around and just try the other side as well. You always wanna make sure you're getting both sides and not just neglecting one. So again, stacking those hips, raising that top knee off the bottom. So again, this is the easier version of our clamshell to start. Again, that's super important to keep those hips stacked so I'm not rolling. That should be 6, so that is definitely a no-no. You're gonna try to keep your upper body and your mid-body relatively stacked and not moving a whole lot. That's 9, 10, 11, and last one. Awesome. All right, so I moved over to a tree. You can obviously use anything for support. This exercise is a single leg hip rotation, so it's gonna be a little easier if you have something to balance on. Of course, you don't have to. I recommend it just for people to make sure you don't fall down. So we'll start on my one leg. I'm gonna hold the tree with my opposite hand. So if I'm gonna be on my right leg, I'm using my left hand to hold it, just counterbalance. It's much easier to do that. I'm gonna try to keep my body nice and upright with the leg that's off the ground. And we'll just do a few of these here, guys. Again, we're doing 12. So it's basically, a fancy word for this is we call it a hip hinge. So what I'm trying to do is basically just kind of keep my upper body and my leg in nice straight line. I have a slight bend in my knee that I'm standing on, so I don't lock out my knee. It should be slightly bent. At this point, my pelvis should be relatively parallel to the ground as I go down. And again, with my foot, I'd say my weight is slightly over my heel, but I am pretty centered over my foot. Let's do a couple more. And last guy on this one on my right. Good, and I'm gonna switch over to my left leg. I'm gonna switch angles for you so you can see a little bit better. So again, my opposite hand is gonna be holding, so my right hand holding on my left foot. So I'll just show you from this angle. Again, ideally what I'm trying to do is keep my hips flat or parallel to the ground. My back leg should be ideally straight. If I have a slight bend in my knee, that's okay. I should have a slight bend in my standing leg. I try to return to upright. I might have been cheating those last couple, so try to return to upright in between your exercises or your repetitions. And let's do a couple more. Good, and that one again should be a little bit hamstring, a little bit glutes. Here's our next version of the bridge, so the medium or kind of moderate difficulty. I'm just gonna flip out to the other side just so you have a different angle. So with this bridge, we're gonna do heeled bridge. So I'm gonna be on my heels only and my toes are gonna be off the ground. So everything kind of stays the same, but I'm going for my heels. You should notice a bit more of a difference, possibly working the hamstrings a little bit more. Ideally, actually, you're gonna be working the glutes a little bit more. Some people will feel it differently. So 6, we're going 12 again. 7 again, real nice squeeze at the top. 8, 9, remember your stomach should be engaged as well, so you don't just let it flop around. 11, and one last one for this medium version. 12, very good. Go back to that moderate or middle version of the clamshell. So for this one, what I'm gonna do is basically straighten out my top leg. Everything else stays the same. So my knees are kind of stacked to start, but I'm gonna straighten out that top leg. My hips are stacked on top of one another. I like to have that top leg slightly behind my other leg, so I'm kind of, my back leg's on a little bit of a back angle. And here we go, we're gonna lift that leg instead of, so these are just a progression of that clamshell. 3, notice the direction of my foot. I'm kind of turning my foot inwards to help emphasize that gluteus medius. I've lost track here, but I think that was 7, 8, 9. So again, the height is really not what's the important part of this. The important part is really the emphasis. And one more, and we'll flip around and I'll talk a little bit more about it. So the emphasis is really on kind of your technique and your form. It's not really about how much you're moving in this exercise in particular. So again, the other leg, we're gonna do 12 more. Again, we're trying to kind of rotate that upper leg inward, so your toes kind of pointing down. The leg should be slightly behind your bottom leg. So it's slightly on a back angle. If you're noticing, again, you're feeling it in kind of some unusual places, like your low back, for example, it's probably your glutes are not strong enough and your body is trying to compensate for weakness. So you're gonna try to start using all these different areas of your body to make the action happen, and you just may not be ready for it. And that's probably why you're either 1, getting sore, or 2, feeling in spots that you're actually not supposed to feel it. And we're gonna do one more of these. Perfect. Okay, so we're gonna get to our medium version or middle version of this exercise. What I'm gonna do is actually stay in my kind of downward position, but just do a rotation of my hips. So I'll let you see what that looks like. Again, I'll start with my right leg down, left leg or left hand on the tree, or again, you can use a park bench, goal posts, whatever you got close by. So I'm gonna get into my hip hinge position, and what I'm gonna do is rotate through my hips. So my standing leg stays there, but I'm gonna rotate up and rotate down. So kind of what I'm trying to do is create some space and then close that space. So again, I'm gonna try 12 repetitions. And this is gonna really accentuate the hip that you're standing on. So again, you're working that gluteus medius that we were talking about earlier. It is a bit of an awkward exercise, so it might take a bit of time for you to get comfortable or used to kind of what you're trying to do with this one. Let's do a few more. So over time, over the repetitions, you just really start feeling that kind of in the upper part of your glutes. And one last one here. Good, and then return to upright. I'm gonna try one more on the other leg, so another version, different angle. So I'm gonna do on my left leg, but use my right arm for stability. So I'm gonna get in my hip hinge position. And then again, we're gonna do some rotations. I'm kind of opening up my hip on that side and then closing it. And again, you're really trying to keep kind of that upright or straight position of your upper body to the back leg. Again, I have a little bit of a bend in my knee, but the movement is really coming through my hip. And again, it is maybe a little awkward initially, but again, it just takes a bit of practice to get used to it. And again, you should be feeling it in kind of the upper glute of the standing leg. Let's do a few more of these guys. 2, and last one. Good. Okay, so we'll do our last and final round. So the more difficult version of these 3 exercises. First one being the bridge. So we're just gonna do a single leg bridge. I'm gonna make it a little bit harder by going straight to the heel. So I'm gonna be on my heel on one leg and then one leg completely off the ground but straight out. So we'll start that, we'll do 12 of these guys. So I'm ideally trying to keep my leg that's straight in line with my body or my trunk. So as I lift up, my leg kind of moves with the upper body. And again, that squeeze of the glute of the leg that's on the ground. So I'm squeezing in this case, my left side quite a lot as I head upwards. And again, I'm getting that core activated as well. And we'll just do a few more of these guys to get 12. And hopefully you're feeling that working through your glutes, maybe the hamstring. And there's 12 on that side. And we'll flip around. So again, the heel of the leg that's going to be touching the ground and straight out with the other leg. So here we go for 12, 11, again squeezing through this tummy, 10, squeezing that glute, 9, 8, 7. Again, if you're finding this is just really difficult, you can always back up and do a version of those easier ones that we had run through and just do those twice. And over time, you work your way up to these more advanced ones. Again, they're quite difficult. 2 and one last one. Awesome. Whew. Okay, so now we're moving on to the advanced clamshell exercise. So we'll do 12 repetitions on each leg. So we're gonna get on our side plank position from knees. So propped up on an elbow, and then basically clamshell from here, spreading and closing the hips. Just remember that we're trying to stay perpendicular to the ground and nice and straight from your head down to your knees. And like I said, this is the more advanced version. You should be feeling that in your glutes. One more here. Good. And we'll flip it around. So again, propped up on the elbow and a side plank from knees. If you're finding this on the easy spectrum, you can always go from your feet and do a full side plank. And then what you do is spread your legs out like we did in the intermediate version, but from that side plank, which would make this a lot more difficult. So I didn't want to include it in this one, but potentially if we get some comments, we can try that in a more advanced hip strengthening exercise video. Perfect, and a couple more. And very good. Okay, so for our last and final version of the hip hinge or single leg deadlift, I'm gonna combine those kind of 2 movements together. So again, tree for stability, standing on my right leg, left hand for support. I'm gonna kind of do, I call this kind of the golfer's pickup, where you'd pick up the ball from the putt, from the hole, and then add the rotation and back up. So again, I'm reaching down to pick up the golf ball, add that outward rotation, inward rotation, and straight up again. Again, this takes a little bit of balance, so I always recommend holding on to something. Again, with that opposite hand to the leg that you're balancing on, it just kind of the counterbalance makes it much easier, much more stable. And again, if you're finding this a little bit tricky or you're kind of flopping all over the place, losing your balance, work on that first version, get through that second version where the rotation's only, and then combine the 2. This is a great one because it works so many different spots. Again, we're emphasizing that hip or the glute on that standing leg, but again, it really works a lot of different areas. Great for balance. This is kind of a really great kind of healthy aging exercise, I call it. As people get older, typically your balance gets worse. So over time, doing exercises like this to work on that balance and challenge your balance is a great way to prevent falls and, again, age really in a good way, so you don't get yourself hurt as you get older. So do just a couple more of these guys. Again, they're pretty challenging. It is a bit of an awkward exercise for people who have never done it before. But definitely something I like to throw into my routine quite often and prescribe it to other people. Okay, so last one, left leg standing, right leg for support. Hip hinge down, open yourself up, close down through your hips, back to neutral, and then upright. So again, that golfer's pickup, rotate out, rotate in, and neutral, and back up. So again, I did this on purpose by showing you some different angles on what I'm doing, because again, it is a bit awkward. It's kind of a different exercise for people who have never done it before. It's a great alternative to deadlifts. If those of you who like to go to the gym and do deadlifts, the remaining deadlifts, this is kind of a great kind of alternative to that. I feel it works my glutes a lot more than just a straight deadlift with two legs, but again, everybody's slightly different. Your bodies are going to be wired slightly differently. You may feel it slightly different areas, but again, sometimes when you're feeling the wrong area, it's typically going to say, telling me that either you're too weak to kind of progress too fast, so you got to back up to a bit of an earlier version, or maybe we just need to have some coaching and get somebody to check out your technique and give you some pointers on what you just need to adjust a little bit of a kind of your legs too high, your legs too low. You're maybe overemphasizing a certain movement of it. So like I said, sometimes a bit of coaching is all you need as well. Let's do a couple more of these guys and then we'll wrap it up. So open it up, close it down, back to neutral, and let's do one last one. Straight down like the golfer pickup, open up, close down. Really kind of keep an eye on what that knee's doing. You want to keep it nice and straight. Don't let your knee wobble. That's really easy for people to cheat on by wobbling through your knees.
Thanks for watching. Let us know in the comments if you have any suggestions for future videos. If you enjoyed what you saw, please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. See you next time.